This is sort of simply keeping the Eurosceptics, the hardliners in his party, at bay for as long as possible, and specifically until the next general election. So what he's likely to offer is, firstly, a renegotiated settlement with Europe, and only then would he offer a referendum to the British people based on that new settlement. So the question would be, do you want to stay in based on this renegotiated partnership with Europe, or do you want to get out altogether? Now, a lot of planets have to align for this to actually happen. First, he has to be re-elected in 2015. Secondly, other EU partners have to agree to this renegotiation, and several of them have already said no cherry picking, you're either in or you're out. And thirdly, even if he did win in 2015, the timing of this referendum would have to be right in his second term. So all these are big ifs, of course.
You got a slightly sarcastic tone there, Armand. It'd be easy to lose a bet on any of those, really, wouldn't it?
Well, you know, I think the domestic situation is going to be key. Don't forget that in autumn 2014, there's likely to be a referendum on Scotland's future. Now, is it at that point that Britain really takes a gamble on EU membership as well, as possibly losing Scotland? And as for the international dimension, we've had already the US warning Britain that it would like to see Britain continue to have a strong relationship with the EU. And other EU leaders themselves also have made it clear that they're going to be, their priority is to stabilize the Eurozone. So to reopen all the treaties, none of these things really seem particularly likely in the next few years.
So do you think other European leaders should be fairly relaxed about this speech then?
I think they'll still be worried. Firstly, it's not just about European political leaders, but business leaders. And business obviously likes certainty. This speech will no doubt increase uncertainty. So that's going to be rattling for business on both sides of the channel, Stuart. But I've noticed in the last couple of days, I interviewed a senior German official, that the Germans are particularly concerned about the possibility of losing Britain. And I've got a soundbite today from the German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble talking about Britain's place.
I hope that with this presentation, if indeed that is the British policy, David Cameron will convince his fellow countrymen and above all his party members that it's very important for Great Britain to continue to be involved and perhaps become even more involved in Europe.
I think we're seeing some German discomfort because the French really don't have quite the same attractiveness to the Germans as they used to. And of course, France and Germany have always been the motors of European integration. We saw yesterday the Élysée Treaty being celebrated, François Hollande there with Angela Merkel celebrating 50 years of friendship. But the truth is that the French economy has stagnated, and that's been a real sort of drag on this whole Franco-German friendship and trust. And the Germans don't want to put all their eggs in the French basket. They would like Britain, from what I've heard, to have a strong, to be in the inner circle, not in the second tier of Europe.
The big worry for Cameron here, isn't it, that he could just finish up leaving everyone frustrated, from the Eurosceptics, those hardliners in his own party, to the Europhiles. It's not going to please anyone.
Well, he's got to... It's very hard to see how he could. I mean, he's got the backbenchers who are likely to say, well, this doesn't go far enough. It's a referendum based on other conditions being fulfilled between now and 2015 or 16. He's got the UK Independence Party. Now, this is perhaps the most worrying thing for him. The latest Ipsos Mori poll from earlier this month, Stuart, showed that UKIP would win 9% of British votes in a general election. Remember, these are former Conservative voters that have switched to UKIP. Nearly 10% of Conservatives have now become UKIP voters. And thirdly, he's got the Liberal Democrats, who are basically pro-European. So you've got UKIP and the Liberal Democrats. These are two factors that Margaret Thatcher didn't have to face. And Margaret Thatcher already was, torn apart by the infighting in her own party within the Tories, let alone these other factors like UKIP and a Liberal Democrat. She didn't have to deal with the coalition government. She didn't have to deal with UKIP. She was just concerned with trying to keep all these wolves at bay within her own party, and they eventually tore her to pieces on Europe. And I think this is going to be a huge thing at the back of Cameron's mind as he delivers that speech. Thatcher's, very successful prime minister in many ways, but undone by Europe.
Armand, thanks very much. Armand Georgian, he'll be back, of course, to give his analysis of David Cameron's speech after he's made it. He's due to start speaking in around about 15 minutes' time, so we'll bring that to you, of course, here on France 24. Also comes as well as the world's political and business elite are gathering in the snow-covered Swiss resort of Davos, aiming to instill some confidence in the global economy. Some 45 world leaders will rub shoulders with around 2,500 lobbyists, journalists, captains of industry and economists for the 5-day annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. French and Malian forces could take back the northern town of Timbuktu and Gao within a month. That's according to Mali's army chief, as French planes continue a sustained bombing of a major base of al-Qaeda near Timbuktu. Officials say a mansion belonging to the former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, which had become the headquarters of Islamists in the region, was also destroyed. Meanwhile, US military planes have begun airlifting French troops and equipment from France into Mali. So far, 80 troops and 140 tons of supplies have been moved. The Pentagon saying the US will not demand payment from France for the use of those planes. We've also just been hearing in the last few minutes, in fact, that Japan has said it is to shut its embassy in Mali because of the worsening security situation there. That just coming into us, Japan shutting its Malian embassy because of the worsening security situation. A little earlier I spoke to our correspondent at the UN Security Council in New York, that's Nathan King, and he told me about the Council's support for the deployment of African troops in Mali.
And that was very much the topic of the day at the UN Security Council, with a lot of different speakers from African nations, neighbouring countries of Mali, pledging a lot more troops than they would have done, say, a month or two ago. Remember, the contingent was going to be around 3,300. Well, we're expecting at least double that now. Nigeria alone today pledged 2,200 troops, Cote d'Ivoire 1,600. There are others as well. Chad is suggesting 2,000. Now, of course, these are promises. They are not actually boots on the ground yet. There's a tremendous problem with logistics and financing as well. This is not going to go through the usual UN channels. And the UN is really taking a back seat when it comes to the normal peacekeeping operations. They do not want UN involvement on the ground. They said that would put UN personnel at risk. So it's very much a facilitating, coordinating role, and also trying to capacity build a capacity for a Malian state when there are elections. And I can tell you also that the UN was saying that they have assurances from the Malian government that there wouldn't be elections held until the north and south are reintegrated into one country again.
Nathan King there in New York. Let's bring you a few other news stories from around the world now. And gunmen have killed 23 people in northern Nigeria in attacks that appeared to target gamblers and people selling forbidden meat that Islamist militants approve of. The deadliest attack, 18 people were killed as gunmen opened fire in Damboa on local hunters who sell bushmeat from animals such as monkeys and pigs. Another 5 people shot dead in Kano by men on motorbikes. The outgoing US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, is due to testify to congressional committees today about the Obama administration's handling of the terrorist attack last September on the US consulate in Benghazi. Democrats blame Republicans for cutting diplomatic security spending. And a fight between 2 people has led to a shooting in a college in Texas. The 2 were both injured, along with a maintenance man caught in the crossfire there. Students forced to flee for safety. Police say one of those involved in the fight had a student ID. Now, it is a bizarre story involving a French woman whose arrest was apparently staged in Mexico as if it was live on television, when in fact she'd really been detained the day before. Now the case of Florence Cassé, who's serving a 60-year sentence in Mexico, is to be re-examined by the Supreme Court there later. As Catherine Clifford reports, a high-profile Mexican television presenter has publicly acknowledged the staging of her arrest.
Playing to the cameras, police act out the arrest of Florence Cassé at a ranch in Mexico. The footage was presented as live when in fact the Frenchwoman had been arrested the day before. Now, after 7 years, a presenter at top Mexican channel Televisa has publicly acknowledged the hoax. He confessed to becoming aware of the situation the moment they went on air. His declaration comes in the context of a re-examination of the Cassé case at the Mexican Supreme Court this Wednesday. The 38-year-old is currently serving a 60-year sentence. She's accused of involvement with a gang of kidnappers called the Zodiacs, allegedly run by her ex-boyfriend. She has always claimed her innocence. Cassé could either face a retrial or be acquitted.
The most likely prediction, as the press said, is that Judge Olga Sanchez's report will be voted on Wednesday, and she'll be awarded an appeal on civil rights grounds.
The case has put strains on relations between France and Mexico. In 2011, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy tried to dedicate a Year of Mexico cultural event to Cassé. This prompted Mexican authorities to cancel it. At a meeting with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, French President Hollande expressed confidence that the Supreme Court would end what he described as a painful situation. But Cassé may not be holding out hope. Last year, judges at the Supreme Court recognized serious irregularities in the case, but 2 of them still opted to confirm her sentence.
Now, the latest there on Florence Cassé. Now, if you were with us yesterday, you'll remember I told you about the stench of gas, which I smelt when I woke up, and I smelt here at France 24 when I came in. In fact, the smell had spread right across Paris, right across much of northern France, even reaching the south of the UK. Well, overnight here in France, an operation has now begun, in fact, to move the offending bad-smelling gas called mercaptan from one vat to another at the plant where it leaked in Rouen. Now, the second vat contains a neutralising substance. The gas, in fact, added to municipal gas because the smell alerts people to real gas leaks. Just hearing as well, in fact, from France's Environment Minister. She's saying that the leak was due to human error or to negligence. It is, though, totally harmless, we're promised. Here's the news headlines. A major setback for the Israeli Prime Minister.